Adventurer Conqueror King system is a big book with a lot of pages and even more words, but why waste your time reading it or listening to me review the various systems in the game when we can just start throwing human lives into a Cuisinart and see what adventures come out? And that's what we're going to do. What you're going to see today are the results of our attempt to speedrun this massive game through solo play. Our characters want an army, they want gold, they want glory, and no calamity will be too devastating, and no disaster too tragic to stop them. The Fellowship of the Fearless are destined for conquest, and the entire continent of Arepos will belong to them. To speed things along, we'll be using some of ACKS' innovative systems like abstract dungeon and wilderness clearing. This will allow us to move our party along through deadly circumstances quickly and keep the game moving. No one in this campaign has plot armor, and people will die. No matter the outcome, new adventurers will take their place, and the world will continue to turn. We're starting with a basic premise from the ACKS I module and letting the dice tell the story from there. As we introduce new systems from ACKS, we'll break down the roles and the results. So let's meet our adventurers and get this bloodbath started. Our intrepid cast of counter-elites is led by Floyd the Fighter, a level 2 adventurer who took a contract at the border fort of Turos Tem. He and his party delved deep into the woods of the Viaspen forest in search of the Red Eye Gnolls, a warband of beastmen plaguing the surrounding area. What they found, buried beneath a mountain of granite, was an unspeakable horror that claimed the lives of the entire party, with Floyd being the sole survivor. But not content to let the legacy of the Fellowship of the Fearless to die, Floyd crawled back to civilization, where he recruited as many henchmen as he could afford to strike back into the ruins that he discovered in the forest. Edwin the Explorer was the first to join his new band. Edwin's sharp eyes and keen senses in the wilderness will be key to surviving the tides of evil that have claimed the woods as their own. Thomas the Thief was recruited in the nearby city of Siadanos after he unsuccessfully tried to rob Floyd and was pressed into service, as the Fellowship would need deft hands of a less scrupulous citizen. Marcus the Mage, hearing Floyd's tales of a sunken temple of apocalyptic evil, knew that his grim dreams of a bloody beating heart in a pool of darkness must be mystically linked to this place, and not simply the product of his extreme opium addiction. Curtis the Crusader was eager to take up the call of the Fellowship, knowing that the Temple of Amanar has grown soft and tolerant in recent years. He yearns for nothing more than to put beastmen to the torch in the name of his god. And Victoria the Venturer, always in need of coin and recently cast out of the Siadanos Guildhall, agreed to work for Floyd to rebuild her capital. So begins the rise of a glorious new dynasty, destined to rule over all of Arepos. After introducing his new companions to the local lord, Legate Ulrund Valerian, Floyd and the Fellowship set off to the northwest to find the Sunken Temple in the Viaspen forest. Trudging through the wilderness at an expedition speed of 12 miles per day, the Fellowship manages to enter the first hex of the Viaspen forest. Using the Wilderness Encounter table in ACKS I, Sinister Stone of Iskara, we roll a d6, and the result triggers a random encounter. The Fellowship is faced with 6 Orc raiders, but neither the Fearless nor us have time to roll out an entire combat. We have an army to raise, gold to steal, and a continent to conquer. To resolve this quickly, we're going to use the ACKS Abstract Wilderness rules. This system allows us to compare a few simple factors about the party and the monsters, and come to a resolution of the encounter with a single roll before anyone has a chance to say, wait, I haven't rolled initiative yet. In the case of the Orcs, we get a challenge adjustment of +1. This allows us to look at the expedition level versus the monster level and shift one column to the right to see that this is an easy encounter. We then roll 1d8 plus 1d12 plus 2 and get a result of satisfactory. We check to see if anyone in the party was wounded, and thankfully, everyone survived. Everyone, except the Orcs, that is. The keen eyes of Edwin the Explorer spotted the Orcs before the monsters knew that the Fellowship of the Fearless was even there. Our adventurers laid in wait in the brush along the path, waiting for the Orcs to step into their trap. Curtis, springing from the bushes with a prayer to his god on his lips, brought his mace crashing down on the porcine snout of a vile beastman, caving in its skull and spilling its brains across the path in the name of Amanar. Floyd and Victoria spring into battle, impaling Orcs on spear and sword, while Thomas and Edwin, creeping in from the rear, jam blades between ribs and cut down the disgusting monsters. The last Orc, a look of confusion and terror on its face, receives a dart through the eye thrown by Marcus the Mage. The bloodshed is over in only a few seconds, and the Fellowship pilfers their pockets and loots the corpses, reclaiming treasure stolen from the innocent. Exhausted from their trek, our brave adventurers make camp for the night and set a rotating watch against the perils of the Viaspen forest. As dawn breaks, Floyd leads his henchmen deeper into the woods. The quiet of this place is eerie, but nothing can prepare his companions for when they arrive at their destination. A giant hill of granite with sparsely a plant growing upon it raises up from the forest floor. A large fissure at the base of the hill leads into the darkness inside it.
Gird your loins, boys. Yeah, even you, Victoria. What lies in that hill, only the fearless can best. To blood and glory!
To blood and glory! Fearlessly, the Fellowship charges into the mouth of the cave, catching 4 kobold guards unaware. They scream bloody curses on the forces of chaos as they rip and tear their way through these pitiful sentries. Not bothering to clean the blood off of their weapons or their faces, the Fellowship finds a large set of bronze double doors leading into the temple that Floyd promised them. Emboldened by their victory at the entryway, the Fellowship marches on into total darkness with only a single torch to light their way. The enormous hallway that they walk down is covered in ancient and horrific mosaics of a lost empire of chthonic evil. As they move through the winding hallways, Thomas the Thief suddenly hears the screams of someone being tortured in a room nearby. Edwin, thinking of all the peasants who have been kidnapped by the beastmen, flies into a rage, breaking down the door while frothing at the mouth. Inside, there are more orcs, slowly peeling the skin off of a lowly peasant. The fire rises within him, and he charges into battle, bringing his pair of short swords to the soft flesh of orc bellies. Not far behind him, the rest of the Fellowship charges into the room in a flash of blades and blood. But before they can unchain the tortured peasants, sounds from the next room alert them to the coming danger. Reinforcements are about to pour through the next door, and Floyd commands his men to fall back. Thomas, quickly sacking what he can from the room, barely escapes, and Floyd looks to Marcus the Mage, telling him gravely,
"You know what to do, lad."
And without a moment's hesitation, Marcus tosses a dart into the heart of the poor peasant chained to the wall. A mercy killing, an act of true heroism in a place of blasphemy. And so the Fellowship retreats to their camp and counts their coins. But how did we do this? To complete this delve, we used the abstract dungeon delving rules, which are even simpler than the wilderness abstraction. We simply compare our average party level to the dungeon level, and add a +1 bonus to our resolution roll because we have 5 adventurers going in. There is strength in numbers. We only wagered 2 encounters, and our resolution roll is a result of 9, which is indifferent. Our adventurers come out unscathed, and with a little gold in their pockets. The Fellowship spent the night recounting the tale of their successful delve over and over, each retelling becoming more glorious, more heroic, bolstering their spirits to attempt another delve at the break of dawn. So they set out into the temple again, this time taking a different path, deeper into the darkness. As they walk into a large chamber, a putrid smell of rotten flesh curls their nose hairs. A voice, too deep and too loud for a man, calls out from the darkness,
"I smell the flesh of man. I want gold or I eats the flesh."
Edwin, boldly exploring the darkness, retorts, "The only thing you'll eat is steel!" But before he could muster more of his famous wit,
The massive hands of an ogre reach out from the darkness, grabbing Edwin by the arms and hoisting him up into the air. Edwin's curses turn to shrieks as the ogre pulls on limbs, ripping them from their sockets and ultimately clean off of his body.
the Fellowship stares in shocked horror as Edwin's body falls to the ground in a heap of gore and shattered bones. Floyd, grabbing Edwin by the nape of the cloak, pulls him back as the Fellowship makes a hasty retreat. The ogre laughs from the darkness, and they can hear him chewing on the severed limbs of their companion. On their way out, they are waylaid by a contingent of hobgoblins seeking easy wounded prey, but the hobgoblins, they are no match for the steel that Floyd and his friends bring to bear. When they make it back to camp, Curtis the Crusader says a prayer to Aminar and invokes his holy magic, stabilizing Edwin at 1 hit point. This delve has been a disaster. The abstract delving roll resulted in an unsatisfactory conclusion, and 1 party member suffered a mortal wound. When a player character or henchman is reduced to 0 hit points or lower, they have to make what's called a mortal wounds roll. This roll is modified by a number of circumstances, but since we're using the abstract delving rules, only a few of those modifiers actually apply here. Edwin rolls 1d20 and 1d6 on the Savage Wounds chart. Since he has a hit die of 6 and a con modifier of +1, he gets a total of +3 to his d20 roll. Unfortunately, he rolled a natural 2, which is a terrible result. He's mortally wounded and will die if not brought back to 1 hit point. Once healed, he needs 1 month of bed rest to get back in the action. Unfortunately, the permanent wound he rolled on his D6 means that both arms were ripped off, and he likely won't continue his employment with Floyd. Somber, and with a growing desire for revenge, the Fellowship rests for the night. The Fellowship makes a tough decision and begins making their way back towards civilization, and the Viaspen forest takes pity on them, throwing no random encounters. It isn't until the sun is setting that Floyd and his companions make it into the grasslands near Turos Tem. They pay a few silver pieces at a farmstead and rest in the stables for the night. Edwin, still on the verge of death, is brought to the hospital at Turos Tem, where he is cared for by the priestess, Lady Ganellan. As she begins to tend to his grievous wounds, he comes to for a moment and spits at Floyd, cursing him for his misfortune.
Floyd, you mountebank! You've ruined my life! You know that ogres are my one weakness! You set me up! I won't forget this!
But his cries are barely heard as the Fellowship of the Fearless is already making their way back to the road. Edwin the Explorer, while still alive, has decided to leave the employment of Floyd the Fighter. Having suffered a calamity in the dungeon, he was forced to then make a loyalty roll at a penalty of -4. Having rolled a result of 4, he has resigned his commission and will no longer continue with his fearless companions. But the Fellowship cannot be weighed down by the maimed and the weak. They need new meat for their ambitions to be realized. Floyd decides that it's time to travel to the nearby city of Siadanos to recruit a replacement henchman. They set off on the road in their small cart pulled by a mule. Being on a gravel road and driven by Victoria, who is an experienced driver, the Fellowship is able to travel nearly 24 miles before coming across something that hasn't been seen in the borderlands for several years now. 2 full companies of Oran cavalry have made camp by the road. Floyd makes small talk with one of the captains and learns that these men have been sent from the capital city of the borderlands, Seraphon, to deal with a tribe of bugbears near Turos Aster. These horrific beastmen captured an abandoned Oran fort over a year ago and have made it their stronghold. Many fear that the forces of chaos festering in the waste may be preparing for war, and this news does only one thing: to cement Floyd's certainty that he needs an army and that he needs to prepare for war.
Of course. My destiny awaits.
After bidding these soldiers good day, the Fellowship stops at a roadside inn for the night. Setting out at first light, the Fellowship continues their arduous journey to Siadanos and encounters a merchant wagon train. Victoria the Venturer does the talking this time, and though the carts are loaded to the brim with goods that could rightfully become the property of the Fellowship through conquest, the merchants have nearly 50 mercenary guards with them, and the fearless decide against violence. They decide to share their campfires with the merchants and depart the next morning. With Siadanos on the horizon, Floyd's Fellowship makes haste to reach the city, but is ambushed by a gang of dastardly bandits. Victoria takes the lead, using her command of diplomacy and a bit of gold from her pouch, and talks the brigands down from bloodshed. The standoff continues for a short time, and Victoria greases the wheels again, throwing in her feminine charms. The bandits become friendly towards this comely lass, and allow the Fellowship to pass without violence. But Floyd, silent, is seething. He will remember their faces. He will remember all of their faces. And he will reclaim his gold. After 3 days on the road, the Fellowship arrives at their destination, stable the mule, and check in at the inn. Siadanos has a population of over 2,000 people. The streets bustle with activity, and Floyd gives the Fellowship a day off after an arduous week of activity. But none of the Fellowship are content to simply get drunk in taverns. Victoria, Marcus, and Thomas set out into the streets in search of business opportunities. Curtis, whose respect for Floyd has grown tremendously after seeing his employer gleefully slaughtering creatures of chaos, will not leave Floyd's side. They take a different path and head to the Mercenary Guild to recruit a replacement for the now indolent and slothful Edwin the Explorer. But no sooner than they arrive are the mercenaries in the hall asking questions about their dear friend Edwin.
He quit,
says Floyd, technically not lying.
Edwin would never quit. He'd only retire if he was horribly maimed or killed. He's the most courageous man I've ever known.
The conversation quickly went south from there, and Floyd and Curtis were unable to recruit anyone. All of this praise for someone so cowardly sours his spirits, and Floyd knew he would not find a worthy replacement here. Nor would he find any recruits in Siadanos this month, as he had already exhausted the henchman availability for the month when he recruited 4 members of the Fellowship just 2 weeks prior. You see, ACKS is a game where scarcity is real, and goods and services don't exist in infinite supply. To hire new recruits, he'll either need to wait until the end of the month, or move on to another settlement. Meanwhile, Victoria and the others have been scouring the city, hitting up merchant guild halls, shops, bazaars, and marketplaces, trying to assess the broader market conditions. Victoria can smell opportunity for gold and trade in this city, and won't let it go to waste. But before she and her friends can get more than 2 city blocks from the inn, they are accosted by loathsome, dirty, disgusting beggars. They've blocked the street and are demanding alms from all who pass by. Victoria, never one to give to charity, pulls a coin from her pouch and throws it in the eye of the dirtiest beggar, blinding him and sending the others into a frenzied fight over the stray piece of gold. The people of Siadanos applaud as the beggars tear each other to pieces, and the city watch arrives and nods approvingly in her direction. Their captain approaches, and with a friendly reaction roll, begins blabbering about the state of the borderlands. It's not long before he begins telling her about his theories that a lizard man, an ancient king, is buried in stasis somewhere, just waiting to be awakened so he can reclaim his empire. Victoria attempts to exit the conversation politely, but he continues, telling her that members of high society have been secretly replaced by reptilians, and they control everything I tell you! The other guards restrain their now screaming captain and apologize for his behavior. He was recently divorced and is having a hard time of it. But Victoria and the others press on into the markets, and through the magic of random encounters, twice pass by merchants who are bickering about the state of the economy, revealing conditions that Victoria may be able to capitalize on. As the day continues, they come across the Town Crier giving the daily announcements. While he is uninterested in talking about the business dealings of the market, he takes a liking to Victoria and shares several rumors with her. She learns that members of high society may have been corrupted by the forces of chaos, and that these cults take journeys deep into the wastes of ancient Zahar to fulfill their dark pilgrimages. Perhaps the captain wasn't so crazy after all, she thinks to herself. While Victoria mulls this over, Thomas continues listening to the crier and discovers that an illustrious mage with an expensive ring on his finger has taken up residence in Siadanos. The man's voice fades away as Thomas can now only hear the sound of gold coins jingling in his mind. A ring, you say? I must have it. And the wheels begin to turn in his mind as he plans a heist. And Marcus the Mage, unusually quiet, can think of nothing but the wonders of the dungeon back in the Viaspen forest. The others see it only as a place to pillage, but he could feel something calling to him there. It calls to him even now, the sound, the beautiful sound of that bloody beating heart, beating in darkness forever. At the end of the day, though these companions have discovered information about the market through random encounters, they fail to accurately assess supply and demand in the city. For now, mercantile adventures will be off the table. On the other side of town, Floyd and Curtis have been drinking after failing to find any new recruits. The sun is set, and they begin their way back to the inn. As they pass by a dark alleyway, the screams of a young woman draw their attention. 2 hoods have her pressed against the wall, weapons drawn. The beautiful young woman looks at Floyd with terror in her eye. In a flash, Floyd remembers being accosted on the road just 1 day ago. Oh, how he longs for the blood of thieves and bandits. Seeing this young woman in peril, he can think only one thing to himself. She's literally me. The bandits cast the woman to the ground, and blades begin to fly. Floyd jumps to confront the first bandit, slashing a deep wound into his larcenous flesh. Curtis sweeps in, swinging his mace at the same man, only to have it blocked by the bandit's sword. And out of the darkness, the second bandit gets behind Curtis, driving his short sword through the Crusader's back. NANI? Felling him in one blow. Floyd, seeing another member of the Fellowship in clear dereliction of duty, plunges his blade into the wounded bandit, snuffing out his life instantly, and taking a 5-foot step to the other bandit for a successful cleave, carves away his flesh, putting an end to the combat. Floyd wastes no time in looting the bodies of the dead, including Curtis, and takes the young woman's hand and leads her out of the alley. Wait, wasn't that guy your friend? Why are you taking his stuff too?
It's what he would have wanted, Floyd says gravely. Curtis was a man of courage and vision, and he'd want me to have his wages.
Floyd walks the young woman to her destination, and she lets slip that she's actually the daughter of an important patrician on her way to meet with her secret lover. They arrive at a large manor, and Floyd thinks to himself as he looks upon its splendor, maybe this wasn't a waste after all. And so concludes week 1 of the adventures of the Fellowship of the Fearless. Floyd still needs to recruit replacements, but the number of hooks that we're generating during this session can take our adventures in any number of directions. They're broke, understaffed, need a score, and they will not be stopped. The Empire will belong to the Fellowship, come hell or high water. Join us next time as we carve a path to bloody glory across the borderlands of the Oran Empire.